Rastafari, I. Welcome to another video, YouTube. Happy blessed Thanksgiving to those who celebrate Thanksgiving. I'm doing another update video to kind of go back over my blog and talk about what's been going on in my life, what I've been seeing going on in the news and whatnot. But I'm gonna go ahead and start just going over Thanksgiving and kind of tie what Thanksgiving stands for and how it relates to what's going on in the world right now and whatnot. But essentially, Thanksgiving is, we all know the story of Thanksgiving and the pilgrimage coming over to America and starting colonial America. And we know this day as being a day of recognition, a recognition of blessing, a recognition of thankfulness, of family and their loved ones and friends. And if you break down the word Thanksgiving, it's a two-part word. It's a thanks and it's giving, and we show our thanks by giving back. And today is the one day out of the year that we all sit down with family and friends, and we actually put this into perspective and really appreciate what we have. And it's kind of sad in society today that we don't take it about ourselves to have more Thanksgivings and then once a year. But it is really a day of recognition, and I'm gonna tie the entitlement of recognition into what I'm gonna go into next. So we're recognizing what's going on in our lives and what we have and what we don't have and what we can be appreciative for, and how just being alive and enjoying life is a blessing itself. But it comes to me as a concern that in today's society that this recognition is not instilled more on a daily basis. And I've kind of seen this ideology of recognition being tied in Rastafari, and how Rastafari can be a way of implementing this recognition into your day-to-day life. Most exemplified in the sense of meditation and sitting down and giving thanks through meditation. I've started to become try to make a daily routine out of taking about an hour out of each of my day to give unto nature an hour of meditation and giving recognition of blessing and what I'm appreciative for in life. And I think that's important for anyone to do is to take some time out of the day and give into the recognition that we the same kind of recognition we give into on Thanksgiving. But I recently touched on what's been going on in the news lately, and the latest case on the Ferguson police brutality case going on right now, and the different protests that are turning into possible riots, and what this has accumulated to, and what kind of impact we could be looking at in the near future, in a societal sense, with police force and what the people want in return from the police force. But the issue at hand is kind of tied back into the Thanksgiving story and what this Thanksgiving story really is. And we have to recognize the pilgrimage and the immigration of Europeans to America was the beginning of hostility between native and immigrants, and people coming into the town and taking land over and implementing hostility upon the native. And I touched base on this in the sense of my last blog post, talking about the whole. It's always been a cowboy Indian game, It's been a cop and robbers game since the dawn of time, and this is kind of what we're seeing with different cases like the Ferguson case. It's really rooted on native hostility and what the opposing force implements on the goodwill of the people. Obviously, this gets rooted down into an ethical and racial slur and accusations in some cases, but it's rooted in oppression, by oppression onto the native. With that said, it's important that we realize what we do and what we take into action, because action is good, but the right action is key. And I'll go into what I touched base on when I said the philosophy of activism. And I've shared already that I spent about a week worth of work with the Greenpeace independent nonprofit, supposedly Greenpeace, and what I experienced with them, and how I didn't feel comfortable. I felt they were scamming and harassing people, and I parted ways with them. But I got to learn what activism really is, and activism really it really runs society, and it's really the control center of society, because activism implements law, it counteracts law, and it checks and causes law. That's what we're looking at right now, in an accumulation sense of police force, and what has police force come down to. And I posted a brief video of a clip that some people have been sharing on Facebook. Excuse me. Of this police officer, I think he was a sergeant out of Ferguson, pretty much admitting that the system was broken, and that the police force was now essentially America's corporate mercenaries, and were at the hands of American corporations, and they're getting ran by people above them, and the system needs to be changed. Activism is essentially, it's almost a science. It's almost a science, because it's a science of society. Activism, is taken upon by the civilian. It's taken by the individual, and it's an action onto society to make a change. And in some cases, it can be positive change. In some cases, it can be negative change. Due to the fact that the activism wasn't taken correctly in the first point, and that's the point I'm trying to get across in this video. When I'm seeing these different protests, we're already seeing the leeway into riots, and what we could see, being an issue of riot control and causing hostility against police force. And I'm the first one that will admit that the abuse of power by the police is corrupt. The police force is corrupt. I used to call police officers pigs, but I don't do that anymore, because you have to show police respect. We need them at the end of the day. They're never going to lead the world. We're always going to have them. But it's time that we start working with the police and showing the police some respect, so the police can start respecting us, because it was always built off mutuality, people. If there's no mutual respect going on, you're not going to get it in return. So these punk-ass kids, and I was in those shoes. I was in those shoes. They used to talk shit to the cops. Shit's going to get hot, and it's going to turn sideways. The first thing I'm going to say is back off the police. Don't cause confrontation to the police. Speak wisely. Use demonstration. Use your words. And that's it. That's it. That's the only thing you should be doing. Demonstrating and speaking wisely. Because if you don't do so, it's going to lead into more violence, and you're a fool for leading into more violence. But with that said, this is the 2 cents I'd give on to any people that are protesting the Ferguson case, and the other cases that are going on. The 12-year-old boy out of Cleveland, Ohio, and whatnot. And I've just jumped on these stories. I've been caught up in my own work, but ironically enough, with my Rastafari work, I saw what was going on in the news, and I realized, what I was working on and what I was seeing on the news was went co-handedly, and it was time to make a stance and make my perspective known, so it can be aware. Most recently I saw, every city, pretty big city in America, young adults were taking protests onto the streets to ask for justice to be served against the police officer. I'm not going to go through the whole scenario. I think I know the story from a fairly direct point of view. And for anyone that that's been caught up in the media or whatnot, I don't know. We weren't there. We don't know the real story, and we'll never know. We weren't eyewitnesses. But from what I've heard, it sounds like action was taken on both sides of the party that shouldn't have been taken, and it amounted to a life getting lost. And this is what I have to say about it. First off, people, we got to learn to just keep our mouths shut. We don't need to be talking shit to people. We don't need to be making a point to the police, giving them middle fingers or giving them fuck yous. We don't need to be causing attention to ourselves. The police are out working, doing their jobs, and we should respect that. We don't need to make it any harder for them than it already is. With that said, the police force needs to stop using such military tactics. People, we need to run this world and run this society based on one thing and one thing only: peace for all. I watch these different documentaries now that they're showing on CNN and whatnot. The police academy is a step down from boot camp, and now you're getting these people out into society that have militant and brainwashed to begin with. And I'm sorry to say that, but that's the truth of the matter. That militant brainwash is a thing. If you're implementing a mind into a discipline that suppresses control over people, you're not standing for peace. So you're not a peace officer. You're a police officer. You're policing people. So we should really start with a title change. If you ask me, we should be calling them peace officers, not police officers. That one would make sense to me. So maybe that's a good activist right to start implementing entitlement change, and people in the truth game I've talked to can make aware that entitlement is rooted in every implementation into society, and it runs its spell into society. So let's go with peace officer to begin with, and get rid of police officer, because policing people hasn't fucking worked. Maybe if we start piecing people, we can piece the fucking puzzle together and move on in this world and in a peaceful and harmonic sense. Because it's time, people. It's fucking time. With that said, I wrote a last poem I wrote was titled Desperation, and I was listening to an Alborosi mixtape, and the Rastaman call is a Rasta call out of desperation. It's a call out of an awakening. People wake up to reality, see what's happening, see the oppression on the people, see how the minority gets treated, and in a sense, I'm a white young suburban San Diego male who can testify for racial and just normal profiling. I've been profiled by the police. I've been tackled blindsided by the police for walking down the street. I've experienced this firsthandly, being a white boy, and it's gotten past to just being a black boy. It don't matter what color your skin is. The police are abusing everybody, and it goes down. The worst case scenarios happen in the rough neighborhoods where it tends to be people from African American or Hispanic descent that are getting the short end of the stick. And I don't blame you. I don't blame any of those families. I don't blame any of those young males or females that are getting treated unjustly. And I'll tell you what, right now, if I was the judge on the Ferguson case, I'd serve that police officer 5 years in jail. It would be state penitentiary for manslaughter. Because I truly believe that police officer didn't have the will to kill that boy, but he got caught up in the scenario and took onto instinct and probably made a choice he regrets. Even though he's saying that he doesn't regret that choice, that's his way of saving himself in the end. Because if he were to say, "I wish I hadn't made that choice," then that causes leeway to give accusation on you killed the boy on purpose. And I came across my writing saying I can read a cold-blooded murderer when I see one, and I didn't believe that this police officer was a cold-blooded murderer, and I still don't believe so. But he should still have to serve time for the action, so that people feel like there was justice served. And if you don't know what manslaughter is a step down from homicide, and it takes morality out of the picture. That the cop didn't purposely kill the boy, but accidentally killed the boy, and that's what sounds like it happened. So if the judicial system doesn't fucking serve him at least manslaughter, I side by the boy's family and say justice hasn't been served. And that's my red flag to the judicial system. So God love them. I hope you guys find some peace out of this situation. It's your story stands as an accumulation to many, and it is a time and day and age where we start fixing the way people are treated, and I'm apologetic for the way people of my color and people of my financial backgrounds have treated the minorities, because it is unfair, and we need to move on from that, and we need to be treating each other in unified identity, in one love, under Jah, and speaking unto peace and peace only. So with that said, I'll go into some of the stuff I've been posting on my blog. I've been posting some of His Imperial Majesty Haile Selassie I speeches that I found off a local Rasta shop up in Oceanside that shares some Rastafari wisdom, and one of them was on war. And it was a speech he did in California, and it talks about how we're always on this evolutionary process of finding unified identity, and it's really in the hearts of the goodwill of the good people to find this unified identity. And this is where my work ties into the main headlines that are going on in the news right now. That Rastafari is this way of life of saying that you stand for peace, and you stand for peace and love only, because it's a representation of yourself that testifies that, and we need to bring that into society, and we need to bring that into culture, and we need to embrace it and make it happen, and understand that it's a way of life, not a religion. But it's for the good evolution of mankind and the human race, and it's something that's going to be worldwide accepted one day. Not everybody, of course, we don't always win over everybody, but I think we're in the good hands of the good people, and we're on to something new. I'm gonna take a break real quick on that, and then I'm gonna touch base on some other stuff. All right, be right back. So, I'll kind of finish up with touching a couple other points. I kind of have been forced to sacrifice a lot in my life to be able to focus on my studying of Rastafari and the truth behind the theology of Rastafari. And I've had to sacrifice everything I've had. Sacrifice my own reputation in the sense that I'm not a quote-unquote working man. I've had to sacrifice my family. I've had to sacrifice my friends. I've had to sacrifice having money in my back pocket. But it comes down to this quote I used to live by, and it was a quote I got off a Bob Dylan poster. You might be familiar with it, but it goes, "I am who I am, and that's all I can be, whoever that is," or something of that nature. I am who I am, all I can be. That's all I can be, whoever that is. And that's what I'm trying to get a point across. I've come forth and I've said I carry divine influence, and all I can say is no one in this world would claim they carry divine influence unless they have reason to do so, and I truly do. I've had relationships with I've different experiences connecting with God, and this is my calling, and I hope I can get a certain level of acceptance and friendship and relationship with people again down the road, and that hostility of me claiming that isn't there anymore. Because I honestly, people, it's not a show for a show. It's a show for a better time and a better way of living. But sacrifice is important for all of us to make. It's something we're forced to make from time to time. But this is what I'll say about sacrifice. It's a necessity to make any change, and we're in this time of where it's a time for a campaign of change from the people. Obama tried running his last campaign off change, and what change did we see from the Obama administration? We saw more detrimental impact than any change. And I'm sorry, Obama, but you're not doing a damn thing. So let's take this campaign of change, and let's take it upon the will of the people, and let's just use constructive activism and get our message across. And let's bring Rastafari into the picture. I really recommend digging into its studies, people. It's a wonderful philosophy that incorporates syncretism and an acceptance of all truth. And if there's one thing I've learned in life that I can share is follow your heart. If you follow your heart, you'll never do yourself wrong. And that's all you have to do. If you're ever in a situation and you don't know what to do about the situation, don't go with your gut instinct. Go with your heart instinct, and you won't fool yourself in the end. But I think I've said enough, and I'm hoping people can give me their feedback on my 2 cents, and that will allow for me to know what to come forward with next. But I think I'm going to be showing how we can incorporate this Rastafari philosophy into this activism, and see how we can pave a new road to see a better day over the hill. So Rastafari, I and I, Jah is the Most High. Give it back to the Almighty always. One love, peace, unity, respect is rooted in the Rastafari dialect. Hang loose, keep it real. We're gonna do this by the people. We can do it. All right, amen. One love.